Frontline Updates, where we delve deep into military strategies and updates from conflict zones. Today, we're discussing the progress of the ongoing special military operation as of October 7th, 2024. I'm your host, Sharifa Muhammad MGT.
I'm Colonel A.C. Oguntoye, an Infantry Officer. Progress of Russian forces. The Russian armed forces reported significant advances and tactical victories in various regions, including Kharkiv and Donetsk, describing successful engagements against multiple Ukrainian brigades across different sectors: north, west, south, center, east, and Dnieper groups of forces. These operations resulted in the reported capture or favorable repositioning along various fronts.
Welcome to Frontline Updates podcast, where we dive deep into the latest developments on the front lines. I'm your host, and today we're joined by Colonel A.C. Oguntoye, an infantry officer responsible for leading operations on the ground. Colonel Oguntoye, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to provide an update on our ongoing operations.
Let's dive straight into it. Today's briefing covers the progress of the special military operation as of October 7th, 2024. Can you give us an overview of the current situation on the front lines?
Yes, our armed forces have been actively engaging Ukrainian formations across multiple regions, with significant progress reported. Our efforts have been focused on degrading the combat capabilities of the Ukrainian armed forces and securing advantageous positions in several key areas, including Kharkiv, Donetsk, and the Kursk region.
That's a lot of ground being covered. Let's start with the operations in Kharkiv. What can you tell us about the progress of the North and West groups in that region?
In the Kharkiv region, our North group of forces successfully defeated elements of the Ukrainian 57th Motorized Infantry, 71st Jaeger, 92nd Airborne Assault Brigades, and the 113th Territorial Defense Brigade. These actions took place around the settlements of Maly Prokody, Lipsy, Verkhnaya Pisarevka, Volchansk, and Krypiny. The Ukrainian forces suffered casualties of up to 95 servicemen, along with losses of 2 armored vehicles, 2 pickup trucks, and a 152mm Akatsiya self-propelled artillery unit. Our West group of forces also made significant gains, securing more advantageous lines and positions. We successfully neutralized Ukrainian forces, including the 30th, 44th, 63rd, 66th Mechanized Brigades, among others. In the past 24 hours alone, we repelled 4 counterattacks and inflicted over 410 casualties on the enemy, alongside destroying several armored vehicles, artillery units, and ammunition depots.
That's quite a detailed account of operations. You mentioned that there were counterattacks from Ukrainian forces. How has your team been handling those counterattacks?
We've been prepared for counterattacks, which is typical in these kinds of operations. Across various sectors, from Kharkiv to the Donetsk region, our units have repelled multiple Ukrainian counterattacks. For example, in the Donetsk People's Republic, our southern group of forces repelled 2 counterattacks by the 28th Mechanized and 81st Airmobile Brigades of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. Similarly, in the center and east sectors, we faced several counterattacks but managed to maintain our positions and inflict heavy losses on the adversary.
Let's move to the Donetsk People's Republic. What were the key achievements there, especially with the southern and center groups?
The southern group of forces has been advancing steadily into the enemy's defensive lines in the Donetsk People's Republic. We have successfully defeated units from multiple Ukrainian brigades, including the 22nd, 30th, 54th, and 93rd Mechanized Brigades, and the 56th Motorized Infantry Brigade. These operations have led to the neutralization of around 590 Ukrainian servicemen and significant amounts of equipment, such as British-made 155mm FH-70 howitzers and American-made M777 howitzers. Meanwhile, the center group of forces achieved a notable success by liberating the settlement of Grodavka. They inflicted further damage on the Ukrainian 23rd, 24th, and 33rd Mechanized Brigades, among others, and repelled 10 counterattacks. The Ukrainian forces lost more than 420 servicemen and several armored vehicles, including a German-made Leopard tank.
It seems like electronic warfare and artillery have played a critical role in this operation. Could you elaborate on their impact?
Indeed, electronic warfare and artillery have been instrumental. For instance, we successfully neutralized 2 Anklavin electronic warfare stations, which has significantly hindered the Ukrainian forces' communication capabilities. Our artillery units, missile forces, and strike drones have targeted concentrations of enemy manpower and equipment in over 129 areas, as well as key infrastructure like ammunition depots and unmanned aerial vehicle workshops. Additionally, our air defense systems have been effective, shooting down 3 Atacms missiles, 5 US-made HIMARS rockets, and 74 unmanned aerial vehicles. This has helped maintain our tactical edge in the air and on the ground. The situation in the Kursk region remains dynamic. Ukrainian forces attempted incursions into Russian territory, but our North Group of forces has been effective in their offensive operations, pushing back formations from the Ukrainian 22nd, 41st, 47th Mechanized Brigades, and more. We've successfully repelled 2 counterattacks in the areas of Kremenoy and Plakovo. Over the past 24 hours, Ukrainian losses in the Kursk region include more than 150 servicemen, several armored combat vehicles, and artillery pieces. Since the beginning of operations in the Kursk direction, we've inflicted considerable losses on Ukrainian forces, including over 21,000 servicemen and significant numbers of tanks and armored vehicles.
With such extensive operations across multiple regions, what are the strategic priorities for your forces moving forward?
Our primary objective is to continue degrading the Ukrainian military's ability to conduct operations. This involves maintaining pressure on multiple fronts, securing key territories, and neutralizing their offensive capabilities. We aim to consolidate our gains while preparing for any potential escalations or shifts in the battlefield dynamics. It's a challenging task, but our forces remain committed and prepared.
Air superiority is always a critical factor in these operations. How effective have air defense systems been over the past 24 hours?
After the trial fabrication of the city of Zaporizhia a couple of weeks ago, the work went much more briskly. If earlier the Russian troops used rocket artillery, for example, Tornado S, to hit targets, now the operational tactical aviation is working in the city at a comfortable range and with a higher density. Both the usual FAB 500/1500 and the UMBP D30SN are used. This combination allows for the destruction of targets to be carried out almost around the clock, due to which the state of military and near-military facilities has rapidly begun to approach that of Kharkov. Considering that the Zaporizhia direction has always been one of the priorities, one can expect increasing supply problems for the Orkhov group of the Ukrainian armed forces.
What role did air defense play during the Velika Novosylka operation?
They report the capture of the village of Zolotaya Niva, 20 kilometers from Ugledar. This is the closest point to Velika Novosylka, where the southern Donetsk stage of the counteroffensive of the Ukrainian armed forces began. It is less than 10 kilometers away. When Velika Novosylka is captured, the entire section of the front under the Ukrainian armed forces in this area will roll up and fall off.
Has the first S-70 UAV been lost in the northeastern military district?
There is one subtlety in the story of the first lost Okhotnik UAV that is not noticeable at first glance. Considering that the vehicle was presumably armed with UMBP D30SN glide bombs with a range of up to 85 kilometers, the talk is most likely about bringing the vehicle into full combat use. Yes, the prototype was lost. Yes, the prototype is expensive. But such products cannot be cheap in principle. The Su-34 frontline bombers carriers of FABs are also not cheap machines. Only in the case of the loss of such an aircraft, at least 2 experienced pilots die, whose training is very expensive and very long. UAVs are the next stage of evolution. As soon as the number of hunters working on the front line at high altitude exceeds at least 10, this will be felt immediately, since 10 freed Su-34s will be able to work in another area.
Is there difficulty with the combat operation of the S-70?
There will be no difficulty with the combat operation of the S-70 in autonomous mode, even despite the unpleasant loss during serial production. The machine does not need to rest, sleep, eat, or relieve itself. It dropped its bombs, returned to the airfield for the next load, and went to work again. In theory, they should already be introduced into the structure of air regiments so that by the time serial production begins, drones in commercial quantities are supplied to those who already know how to work with them. And most pilots already have this experience. As soon as at least 2 or 3 units of hunters begin combat work will go much more vigorously. And everyone understands this perfectly well.
Colonel, thank you for providing such a detailed briefing on the current military situation. Your insights are invaluable to our understanding of the conflict's dynamics. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Join us next time as we continue to provide up-to-date coverage on global military affairs. Stay with us for more updates and expert analyses on global defense and security issues. Stay informed, stay secure.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to provide this update, and I appreciate the opportunity to share our perspective. Hamas fires a volley of rockets at Tel Aviv on the one-year anniversary of the October 7th attacks, with Israelis holding memorials to mourn the victims of the deadly assault. Large explosions rocked southern Beirut as Israeli forces continued to pound the Lebanese capital, while at least 10 people were wounded in the Israeli city of Haifa following a Hezbollah rocket attack.